Let's take a look at what we know about the case. According to court documents, Michael Cohen paid Stormy Daniels, Stephanie Clifford, $130,000 through a wire transfer on October 26, 2016. Take a look at this on the screen with me. Cohen told the court that the payment was for the principal purpose of influencing the election. This was on October 27, 2016. On November 1st, just days before the election, Daniels' lawyer sent a signed non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, back to Cohen. The Wall Street Journal reported on this payment, but without anyone involved talking, the story flew under the radar. Donald Trump was elected a few days later as president. As the president-elect was preparing for the inauguration, Cohen submitted a bill to the Trump Organization itemizing the hush money, the $35 wire transfer fee, and $50,000 listed as tech services. We're still trying to find out what this $50,000 is. The executives at the company decided to, quote, gross up Cohen's $180,000 to $360,000 because after paying taxes, he'd end up with the amount that he paid out on behalf of Trump. Cohen then submitted a fake invoice on Valentine's Day listed as a retainer for services to a person named in the criminal information as executive number one. NBC News has now confirmed that executive one is Trump Organization CFO Allen Weisselberg. That's according to with knowledge of the matter. Weisselberg forwarded the fake invoice to executive number two, who approved the payment. Over the course of 2017, Cohen submitted more fake invoices, and each month the president's company paid him $35,000. The New York Times notes that the penalty for making a false business entry with intent to defraud is a misdemeanor, but if it's done to commit or conceal another crime, then it's a felony. NBC News reached out to the Trump Organization for comment, but has not received one. So let's bring in the experts. Joining me now, Jill Wine-Banks, former Assistant Watergate Special Prosecutor and MSNBC contributor, and Barbara McQuade, former U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan, and also an MSNBC contributor. Barbara, let me start with you. What do you make of this latest development? It can't be underscored that while the country didn't know the name of Weisselberg, first probably got familiar with that name after the Michael Cohen recording was released in which he talked to Donald Trump about consulting with Weisselberg. What do you make of the fact that he now has some sort of an immunity agreement?
I think it's very significant. When immunity agreements are granted, they are not usually specific to one particular target, like Michael Cohen in this instance. It's usually for any and all crimes that you have knowledge of. And so my guess is that Weisselberg is talking about who is executive two, who else in the Trump Organization might have been involved in these payments, and could even incriminate the Trump Organization itself. And so the fact that he thought he needed immunity suggests that he believed he had some criminal exposure himself. And so this is a real gift to prosecutors, because if they want to build a case now against other executives in the Trump Organization or Trump himself, they don't need to use Michael Cohen as a witness who has a lot of baggage. In fact, that could explain why there was not a cooperation agreement along with his plea agreement that was entered the other day.
Jill, let's talk a little bit about the fact that New York State is now involved. The Attorney General for New York is looking to has a complaint with the Trump Organization. This obviously complicates matters for the president because he keeps dangling these little pardons out there, and obviously he doesn't have pardon power over things having to do with the state. But tell me about how New York State and the feds are likely cooperating on this.
Obviously, the state has gotten the information from the investigation in the Southern District of New York, and they are pursuing it. And you are correct, it is something that Donald Trump cannot pardon anyone for. So it's significant. But I want to go back to something Barbara said, because I think there's something really significant in the fact that they grossed up the amount. That shows that they knew that they were paying a sham invoice. If they had been actually reimbursing him, he wouldn't have to pay taxes on it because it would have been
expense.
Exactly. And so the only way they had to gross it up was because they were reporting it as income to him, and they knew it wasn't really income, so they wanted to pay the taxes on it. So that's pretty clear proof that the Trump Organization is guilty, and it also would make the crime at the state level a felony because they're concealing another crime. So I would say there's a couple of Watergate analogies, which is what did the president know and when did he know it, which is a question. We know he knew before the payment because of that tape recording. But we need to know if he knew that the Trump Organization was doing all this illegal stuff. And as Barbara said, I think with Weisselberg, there could be so many more crimes uncovered. And if he's smart and has a good immunity deal, he ought to get it all out now while he has immunity. And that could really lead to the downfall of the Trump Organization.
And Barbara, let's talk about immunity. You then, once you've got an immunity deal, you can't then not testify about something and invoke amendment. At that point, because they're not going to prosecute you, you are sort of compelled to say everything you know.
Yeah, generally. Now, it depends on what kind of immunity agreement they have. Sometimes it's a letter agreement where they negotiate specific terms. Sometimes there is use immunity where you get a compulsion order from a court. So it depends a little bit. But yes, generally, the idea is I have immunized you. You agree to talk to me, tell me everything you know. I agree not to use any of those statements against you, but you are now giving up your Fifth Amendment rights not to testify, not to incriminate yourself. So I get to ask you about anything I want to, any topic whatsoever. So it would likely not be very specific to one particular investigation, for example, Michael Cohen, but about anything, any crimes that he knows of. And as Jill said, there's a real incentive in that situation for someone like Weisselberg to volunteer everything he knows under that umbrella, because he gets protection for everything that he talks about. Any crime he's ever committed, any crime he knows of, this is his moment to get it off his chest, because they're not going to use these statements against him.
So, Jill, whether you're talking about the mob or whether you're talking about corporate crimes like Enron or things like that, generally speaking, once you have the key advisor, lawyer type, and you have the money person, you can sort of piece the whole story together.
Absolutely. And this is a reminder to me. I started out as an organized crime prosecutor at a time when the Racketeer Influenced Corrupt Organization law just had passed. And I'm looking at a RICO corporation right now. And there are so many things that we could learn from Weisselberg if he sticks to his immunity and goes forward. And Barbara's right. It depends on whether he has specific transactions that he's immunized for or for just whatever he says. Either way, he'd be smart to come forward with everything and to reveal what we all have wanted to know. And this might be the time, finally, for us to get the tax returns. That's what we need to see, what the president and when he knew it and what he did.
Jill, good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Jill Wine-Banks is a former assistant Watergate special prosecutor. Barbara McQuade is a former U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Michigan. Thanks to both of you. Coming up.